The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again.
Hello, Brand. Welcome to this VIP interview. Listen, I can give this guy an intro for the next 15 minutes. I was a mark for him way back in the day. I'm still a mark for him today. I'm so glad he's on this show because we're gonna dive into the problems with professional wrestling today. There are a few topics I want to cover with him, and the only way I'll really be able to get to the crux of the problem is to really talk to a legend and somebody that was there during the first boom of professional wrestling under Vince McMahon. I call it the early WrestleMania boom. I'm talking about WrestleManias 1 through 3 when wrestling ruled the world. The cover of Sports Illustrated, WrestleMania 1, 93,000 people at the Pontiac Silverdome for Wrestling 3. Wrestling took over the world, and this man was a huge part of it. I'm talking about the one and only Chris Pali's King Kong Bundy.
Thank you very much, Vince. That wonderful introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here. But if we're going to dive into the problems of wrestling, my friend, then we better have some big tanks and be ready to go deep.
No, Chris, we're going to go deep. And, I was telling my producer, Chris Cash, Double C, that this is why I was excited to have you on the show, Chris. Chris, I love when I have intelligent wrestlers on the show where we can really go, beyond what you see at TV.
I'm the only intelligent professional wrestler that I know, so I don't know what you're talking about.
There's only a handful of them, bro. I'll be honest with you, and you definitely are one of them.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you, Vince.
Now, there are a lot of problems today. Chris, here's the first thing. Let's get this out in the open. Chris, when you go back and you look at professional wrestling, there were two big eras, period, end of story. Your era, the very beginning of WrestleMania, then it's almost like you have to go 15 years later to the Attitude Era. Now we're 15 years past that, and nothing is happening. So if you look at the history of the business, there were really two booms in professional wrestling. You were a huge part of one. I was a part of another. That's why I think we can have this conversation. But Chris, you know what pisses me off? And I want to get your thought on this off the bat. When people in the wrestling business, right? When the business is down, Chris, you always get the story that the wrestling business, works in cycles. It goes up and down in cycles. Bro, what is the cycle? Every 15 years? Do you agree with that theory?
Well, I have to say I do. You mean that wrestling is cyclical in nature? Is it cyclical or cyclical? I'm not sure.
Cyclical.
But it goes in cycle. What is it?
Cyclical.
Cyclical. Okay, so I was wrong. Yeah, but like you said, if it does go in cycles, which I always thought it did, I'd like to know what this basically, like the stock market has its cycles, and they can, rough it out 7 to 8 or whatever years. But I don't know. Is it once every 15 years? That doesn't seem like a very good cycle to me. And there's just so many. If the business was booming right now, you couldn't say a word. Vince, I always said when I was young, I don't want to be one of those old timers who all he does is knock the business because he's bitter, because he's old and he's not in the business anymore. Which of course I am. I'm bitter because I'm old and I'm not in the business. But I didn't want to be one of those guys. But it makes it hard with the state of wrestling today and the things you see. And also the fact everything you say can be backed up by the fact that the business is just doing terribly. I mean, think about it. You get to probably go out a lot more than I do, but I mean, you never see a wrestling T-shirt. It used to be you couldn't walk 3 feet without seeing an Austin 316 shirt or some kind of shirt. Never see a wrestling T-shirt.
Well, Chris, let's set the standards here because I think you and I are on the same page. Listen, bro, we don't want to be bitter. There's no reason for us to be bitter.
We had our time.
What's that?
we had our time. We both
Yeah.
had brilliant runs.
Right, we
Yeah.
both had brilliant runs. We both had great careers. So basically, what this interview is about for me, and I know you as well, is there's no reason to be bitter, bro. But what I'd like to do is let's look at some of the problems, see if we can define them, and maybe if people inside the industry starts breaking things down, they may be able to make some of those corrections to get the wrestling business back on track. That's how I honestly look at it, bro. I mean, I'm still in the wrestling business. I needed to thrive to make a living, but it seems like nobody is stopping and looking at the big picture and examining what the problem is.
So you're saying, Vince, will be the impetus for this new huge change to wrestling?
Exactly, bro.
I love
it. And then we'll get all the
right
credit.
here tonight.
Hey, Chris, let's start with this because I'm writing a series on my wrestling site and I'm breaking it down. This was the category today, Chris, and I want to get your feedback on this. You're the perfect example, okay? Chris, as a casual wrestling fan, I consider myself a casual wrestling fan, bro. When wrestling is good, I watch it. When wrestling is bad, I don't. I'm not one of these lunatics that I'm going to watch a 3-hour show every Monday night if I'm not enjoying myself and it's not good because it's wrestling. When wrestling's good, I like it. When it's not, I don't like it. I'm a casual wrestling fan.
3 hours.
Yeah.
That's a long
Chris,
time.
with that being said, you and I touched upon this a little bit the other day. Bro, when and why did wrestlers stop looking like wrestlers? Bro, I was looking at the WrestleMania card today, up and down the card. Everybody looked like a professional wrestler with a gimmick. They had the body. They played the
What
part.
WrestleMania card are you talking about, Vince?
What's that?
You said you looked at the WrestleMania card. What
Yeah,
WrestleMania card?
Yeah, I looked at the WrestleMania card and I looked at the talent that was on that card.
But what WrestleMania is what I'm saying.
The first one,
the
first
one. Okay.
First one, Andre, you, Hulk, Orndorff, Snuka, Nikolai Volkov, Iron Sheik, up and down the list. Every person looked like, let me put it to you this way, Chris, they belonged. Today, you watch wrestling, a lot of the guys I see are smaller than me. They're not intimidating. As a casual fan, I'm sitting at home thinking, you know what? I might be able to take this guy. The larger than life personality is gone. And my question to you is, you worked with all those guys, bro. How do you think that digressed over the years where you can now be, come on, bro, 180, 200 pounds and call yourself a wrestler? You couldn't back in the WrestleMania era.
Brother, 180, 200, that's being generous. Most of these kids nowadays are lucky to make $170. I guess the WWE guys are 170, 180, 200. But, yeah, the guys, not only don't they look like wrestlers, they don't look like grown men so many times to me. Well, I told you a story about I went to this show and your other version, and with a person from another country, young lady. She had seen a bunch of independent shows, but we did one where all it was old timers: Sheik, Volkov, Killer Bees, me. I think Honky Tonk was there, and she said best wrestling show I ever saw. And I was intrigued because she didn't, see one Hurricanrana or one moonsault or anything. I said, why was it the best? She said, because everyone looked like a wrestler. Everybody had trunks and boots. That's what I threw in. But that's what it means. Everybody looked like a wrestler. And everybody looked like a grown man.
Well, Chris, let's talk about when it started with you, because if I'm correct, Chris, you got your start in world-class championship wrestling in Texas with the Von Erichs. Is that correct?
Right, that was my break, yeah. Well, what I did, I actually was trained by Larry Sharp, and Larry's a bonehead. He said, don't break in around here, because the goal back then was to go out and work the other territories, build yourself up, and then when you've got your act together, your gimmick and your work, then you go to, they called it New York. which is the WWE now. They call the territory New York. So he said, you don't want to break in here. But it doesn't matter. I talked to Gorilla Monsoon, and he said, well, you learn here, because I didn't just want to go on the road not knowing anything about the business, being totally brand new. So I did TV for about a year and a half. Every 3 weeks, I'd go on Tuesdays, we'd go to Allentown. On Wednesdays, we went to Hamburg. I would work 3 tapes every night, get beat 3 times for $50. And then I finally, after a year and a half of that, I started to get some house shows. Then I went on the road. Blackjack Mulligan opened Knoxville back up, and I was down there. And I happened to go to, I went to Atlanta to be on the Atlanta TV because I was going to work that night with Bruiser Brody in the Omni, the big building in Atlanta. So I went over on TV to set me up for Brody that night. And because I was on the TBS, Gary Hart, the booker in Dallas, saw me, and he gave me a call. So that was how I got my first big break to go to Dallas World Class.
Now, Chris, let's start there. You're working at Dallas. Well, bro, let's backtrack. Because I'm curious about this. You go into Larry Sharp's school, in New Jersey. What was it? Was
Right.
the Monster Factory, correct?
Right. Well, there was no Monster Factory. I actually had to rent a building. It was just Larry training me. The Monster Factory hadn't been established yet. So these guys talk about the sacrifices they make. I rented a building for $360 a month plus utilities. I had to have that building for almost 2 years to have a place to put the ring. Plus, every time they rented a ring, we'd have to knock it down, set it up, and it was a lot of work and a lot of money.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this. Okay, now listen, I understand, like how, promoters and trainers and all that work. Listen, man, if I'm a guy that wants to train to be a professional wrestler, bro, no matter what I look like, no matter how big or small I am, if I'm in shape or if I'm not in shape, if I have money, okay, they're going to take me on. They're
Absolutely.
going to train me, right? So they could take my money, bro. It's a business. Like, I totally
Right.
understand and I totally get that, but I would have to think, Chris, back in that day when I'm a Larry Sharp and people are coming into my school, bro, I have to know, okay, this guy has the potential to become
Right,
a
of
professional
course.
wrestler.
Yeah.
This guy will never be a professional wrestler for as long as he lives.
Right.
I would assume that those smaller guys, the marks that wanted to become wrestlers, they get weeded out somewhere along the process. So when you finally get to a Texas like you did, you're surrounded by guys that legitimately look like wrestlers.
Right.
Is that fair to
Absolutely.
say?
Absolutely. I'm trying to think who had a gimmick, the non-wrestling gimmick back then. I mean, Kabuki, the great Kabuki, and a Japanese guy with a vicious front kick. Really looked good. He wore like long karate pants, but even so, he had karate pants on, so he was close to a wrestler. You didn't see these gimmicks now, like just a pair of shorts, what does Cena wear? He wears cut-off jean shorts, right?
Yeah, jean shorts, yeah.
With his underwear hanging out, yeah, and sneakers. I mean, that's your world champion. And there's a guy who would look good in a regular wrestling outfit. I don't understand that personally. It's like you're put in a river and you're told you have to swim a mile. Are you going to swim upstream or downstream? To me, when you go away from what you are, like when a little skinny guy tries to be a vicious heel, he's just fighting the current. He's fighting the trend and making it that much harder.
Okay, now, but Chris, so back in the day, back in your era, the guys are getting weeded out during the process. I mean, we know who's going to make it. You know who's not going to make it. And a lot of that, bro, has to do with look alone. I mean, come on, bro. It's called the it factor. You look at a guy, you know immediately if somebody has it.
Physical presence.
Physical presence, Chris. Now, Chris, here's the question, though. Here we are in 2014, and not only are guys with no physical presence making it all the way to the training facility down in Orlando, Florida for the WWE, but, bro, these guys are actually making it to the show. They're appearing on television, prime time on Raw. How was it that back in the day, you didn't have the physical presence, you get eliminated, But in this day and age, it seems like any size or shape, you can make it all the way to the big show.
Yeah.
What happened between point A and point B?
I do not know what that's the $1 million question, Vince. What happened? I know one thing when I come back, and I don't mean to digress, but when I came back in '95 after leaving in like early '89, I remember looking at a card, and they gave the people so much more than they had just 6 years earlier. And I remember at the time that the sixth match was like Lex Luger versus another top guy. So it was like, that was the sixth match, which should have been the main event, or at worst the semi-main. For some reason, in that 6 years, they just started having to, or just did it for some reason, having to give the people so much more. I couldn't believe it. It really surprised me. Also surprised me that Bret Hart was a champion. See what those guys were, like a Shawn Michaels. People say, but he's a great worker. Of course he's a great worker. He better be a great worker. What they were called in the old days were good little workers. It meant they could go in the ring, they could do anything you wanted to do, but they'd never draw you a dime.
And you know what Dutch Mantel used to call him, and because I worked a lot with Dutch, good little hands. Good little hands. That's what he used to call them, right?
You need them. They can make me look good. They can make you look good. You need them, but
Chris, how did those guys in 2014? How did those same guys become top guys now?
I do not know. Vince, that's a question you could answer far better than me. I mean, you had so much time there in that second run there's so much time. I never had proximity to the crown like you did. That's something you should be answering, my man.
Well, Chris, you know what I think? This is what I think part of the problem is, okay? And I think it's a huge part of the problem. And it happened around the time you're saying, bro, the internet really started playing a big part of into wrestling in the early 90s. That's when it started. All of a sudden, bro, nothing's kayfabe anymore. We know how the business works. We know everything about the personal life of the wrestlers. And the people involved in this internet wrestling community, they're interested in, the Japanese style of wrestling. They like wrestling for wrestling matches. Those are the purists. Those are the guys that ran the wrestling websites early in the 90s and still do today. Bro, somewhere along the line, Vince McMahon bought into that theory, and all of a sudden it's like you say, bro, it's how good a worker somebody is has take precedent over the physical presence, the character, the it factor. All of a sudden it's all about how you work. And Chris, to this day, I still don't think casual wrestling fans care about that.
No. Well, didn't you? I was talking about our conversation last night, Vince. Didn't you say that they did a study and that 25% of the fans, followed wrestling on the internet, and this other 75%, the vast majority, were just casual fans? You said that, right?
Yeah, they actually, I went back and I checked myself. What they did was they did a study of the WWE network. And 75,000, I think it was, or 750,000, something like that. It was 75%. They were the casual wrestling fans that were buying that network. And bro, they're buying the network for the early WrestleManias. They're buying it for the Attitude Era. They're buying it for the glory days of wrestling.
They don't follow wrestling on the internet. These 75%.
Exactly, and only
I've said that for years, and I still question whether the number is as high as 25% people that follow it closely on the internet. I think that's a little generous, and I've said that for years. I was so glad to hear you tell me that.
But yet they're catering to this 25% because they have the loudest voice. But in the meantime, all the casual wrestling fans are going away, and we'll buy the WWE network so we could see WrestleMania era, or we could see the Attitude Era, or we could see wrestling when wrestling was good. They're not buying today's product, but yet I don't know what the WWE doesn't understand about that.
Why have you ever talked to Vince about this?
Now, Vince doesn't talk to me, bro. Vince stops talking to you when you stop making him money. You know that. Hey, Chris, here's another thing I got to ask you about, right? Back in when you broke into the business and you had territories all over the place and you had different trainers everywhere in every territory. You're learning from different people, and when King Kong Bundy is going from territory to territory to territory, he's learning a little here, a little there, a little there, and everybody has a unique wrestling style. I think now, Chris, when they're all going through this same facility in Orlando and they're learning how to work, bro, they're all learning how to work the same. There's no difference from personality to personality. They're all going through the same drills. They're all learning how to bump the same. They're all learning how to do offense the same. They're all learning the same thing. So by the time they get to the WWE, they all look the same.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never even thought about that. They didn't actually have physical trainers in each territory, but like you said, you saw a lot of different people, saw a lot of different styles, and worked with them, and adapted some of that to your own style. But yeah, that's a good point, Vince. They all work out, do the same drills, with the same people every day. Yeah, they never really get the experience. See, Vince doesn't like the independents. To me, they're a good farm system for him. He should encourage and help the independents, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I heard he'd like all them to close.
Yeah, and Chris, another lost start, and I want to hear about your education on this, bro. Another lost start is psychology. I mean, psychology has just gone out the window. If you would have saw this pay-per-view the other day, this TLC pay-per-view, psychology out the window. Chris, you had to learn to work. Psychology was a different school, a different campus, a different college. How did you learn the psychology of wrestling, back in the day when you were breaking in?
Well, it just comes through experience, But you think about what you wanted to do, but it's strictly experience, and people don't realize one thing guys do is they rush so much. Well, that's part of the psychology too, to slow it down a little bit and let the people see what you're doing and let what you do mean something. Instead of hitting the guy, bam, 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 set him up in the middle ring, bam, and give him one big shot and let him really sell that. Tell the guy, come up slow, I'll hit you with a clothesline, So, you're standing there just waiting to pounce, and he staggers up and turns around to you. Boom, you level him with that. So much of that psychology, to me, just involves timing and everything. Like I said, I did stand-up for a while. Timing is everything, I think, in life and stand-up and wrestling and everything.
Well, Chris, not only timing, but when you talk about doing stand-up, just as important in stand-up as it is in professional wrestling, this is another lost art, I think is, bro, listening to the people.
Right.
I mean, how many times, Chris, were you in the middle of a match where you're listening to the people, and whether you're in there with a Hogan or, whoever from back in the day, you're listening to the people, you're playing off of the people, even if that means changing something in the match to react off of the people. That's how you're getting now the entire, 93,000 in the Pontiac Silverdome involved in the match. Today,
right.
If you don't listen to the people, and a lot of them don't, how do you bring the fans into the match if you're not listening to them?
Yeah. You and I found too with the guys, and I'm working with the federation down in Delaware. So many of the guys, they know everything about the business. Haven't been in it that long. I haven't had much success at it, but they just know everything. I was on somebody's Facebook the other day, wrestling. I can't remember who it was. And there was this young boy. He says, "All I care about in the match is getting all my shit in." He said, "I'm going to get it in, and I'm not doing a job for nobody." And somebody replied, I'm sure that's what Ric Flair says, you know what I mean? But that's the attitude. Get my shit in at the cost of anything, rather than the attitude of let's put the match over so we both look good, we all win. No, get my shit in. And it's never anything. It's always just some wild high spot. You know what kills me? These high spots they do, Vince, it looks like ballroom dancing. It looks so choreographed and so fake and so ridiculous that it's offensive to watch.
Yeah, and again, Chris, it's really hard for me to put my finger on how has it come to this. I mean, we're talking about, listen, bro, you were there. You were at the big dance. There is an art of wrestling. There is an art in the way you look. There is an art in the way that you work, the way you sell, the psychology of a match. There is an art to it. Somewhere along the line, we lost that art, and it did turn into a train wreck and a car crash, and the internet puts it over. That was a 5-star match, and they're looking at all the moves that you can't even.
His mic skills are weak, but his work rate is off the chart. I hate the fact that some jabronis on the internet actually have influence, and that's a problem I'm having with this guys I'm trying to help in Delaware. They're always on that internet thinking that's what's important, and it's not. I mean, and I can just hear them. Well, old Bundy, he's a good guy, and he had a decent career. But, this new fast-paced, internet-driven world today, he just can't get his head around it, Yeah, right.
Nah, bro, again, look at where the business was then, and look at where it is today. And
can't go to Madison Square Garden once a month. You're drawing from millions and millions. In my mind, Vincent, I think it's totally gone now. One of the biggest jerk-offs ever in the history of wrestling was hardcore. Hardcore was a waste, a stupid waste, in my opinion. It was one more step in giving the business away. You know what I mean? Hardcore. What do you think of the hardcore era?
Now, again, the problem with that era was, bro, where does it go from there?
Right.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Once you've seen everything, you just become numb to everything, and nothing means anything anymore, and you can't top that.
Yeah. I had a promoter call me. He says, we want you to do a job on Low Life blank blank, this guy. He says, could you really, just staple him in the face 50 times? He doesn't care. Would you be up for that, Bundy? And I said, nah, I wouldn't be up for that. I'm not up to, stapling nobody. I'm not up to spanking nobody. They wanted me to spank this young girl one night. I'm not spanking anybody. I'm not stapling anybody. I'm not throwing anybody down in brass tacks. Don't need it. Thanks.
Chris, this is the thing that I always said to the guys. This is, to me, what makes all the sense in the world, okay? Here's a guy like King Kong Bundy, okay, who is a character. You see him, you know who he is. He works his gimmick. He looks his gimmick. He's believable to the audience. He can work a slow, methodical, psychology-filled wrestling match, okay?
Whoa. Tilt. Time out right there. Time out. What's this slow, methodical bullshit, Russo?
Bro, the heel getting the
King
heat.
Kong Bundy was as big as a rhino and as fast as a Jeep. I was seriously, as super heavyweights go, nobody else could touch me. I'm not talking about giants. Andre was the only giant. But of all the other super heavyweights, nobody moved better than me. So don't even start with that slow.
No, I'm talking the slow, methodical heel.
And grab your little pencil neck and give it a squeeze, Russo.
Listen, bro, the slow, methodical heel, put the boots to the baby face, get the reaction from the crowd, pick him up at your own pace. All right,
keep going. Come on, Russo.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, anyway, bro, now somebody like you, if that's your character and if that's how you're making money, bro, you can go on and have a brand and make a career in wrestling for years and years and years and years and years. Opposed to, you're going to go in a ring, you're going to flip, flop, and fly, you're going to do a million moves in a ring, take the chance of breaking your back or breaking your neck like many of them do, and guess what, bro? By the time you're 35 or 36 years old, career's over. Why would you want to go down that road when you can prolong your career if you just learn how to work like a wrestler?
Because that's what was in vogue, and that's what I remember kids saying to me. He says, I want to be a wrestler, but I want to be hardcore so I don't have to work out. I said, good thinking. They just want to, the problem, and the problem in life too, I think, with people with all these tattoos, people want so desperately to be different and to be special. And basically, we're not really, most of us, myself included, we're not really that different and that special. But we sure want to be that. I think it carries over into wrestling. They want to be different. I used to love tables too. Well, if you're dropping a guy to the ground, the table breaks his fall. I remember some guy, some goof, I don't know how I was reading it, but he was on the internet and he was talking about the Dudley's table work. Yeah, I met Bubba Dudley last month at a show, and I actually talked to Devon. What a couple of great guys, the Dudleys. I'd never met them before. Do you know them, Vince?
Bro, I was on the phone with Bubba today, and we were talking about you.
Yeah, good guy, real good guys.
Yeah, and the conversation I was having with him went very much the same, the conversation that you and I are having today. Because those guys, I mean, they are very old school, especially Bubba when it comes to psychology.
Right. And I mentioned to both of them, and I hope they don't think I was being an asshole, but I mentioned to both of them, for example, Spike Dudley should never have been in the business. Never have been in the business. Should never have stepped in a ring. Hurt the business. But, they thought at the time.
But there's more and more Spike Dudleys. That's the
Spike was one of the worst, Vince. He was one of the most egregious.
Yeah, yeah.
They actually called me, and Tommy Dreamer wanted me to put Spike over like a little 5-show run. He offered me good money. And he said, Spike will get the sauce for you. And I thought that would be the jewel in the crown of my career. Spike Dudley got the juice for me. And I turned it down, not because I respect the business, because it wasn't right. If Spike Dudley was some ripped up 150-pound guy who could probably kick my ass in real life, I would have said, yeah. But why? Okay, that's fine. ECW. Then I'll never forget this. I was watching this show, which I didn't watch too much at the time. It was Spike Dudley against the heel. They had this young black guy, all jacked up, looked incredible. And his gimmick is he's beating everybody in 5 minutes or less. So they put him in with Spike, and Spike beats this kid from pillar to post for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. In the last 10 seconds, Spike slips on a banana peel, and the guy beats him. Now, how are you building a heel when you just watched Spike Dudley beat him up for almost 5 minutes, and he's supposed to go against some other monster heel? It's just bad. But see, people, they think it's cute. Like, oh, let's have Spike be the giant killer. But it's not good for the business. And to me, it's disrespectful to the fans, actually. And they get enough disrespect from wrestling. They don't need it anymore because wrestling fans are pretty nice people. They really are.
Chris, you know what I think the problem is, too? And I think you can definitely comment on this better than I can. Bro, somewhere along the lines, I think these wrestlers today – I think somewhere along the lines they kind of forgot that it was a business, and they kind of forgot that the end game is what do we have to do to make the most amount of money? Because if that's the way they looked at things, bro, look at the top money makers in the history of the business, bro. I'm not even going to say not great workers, questionably not even good workers, bro. If people can't look at Hulk Hogan and understand how Hulk Hogan made himself a fortune and how at his age today he's still earning a great paycheck doing the same exact thing. If I'm a businessman, why wouldn't I be modeling myself after that? Yes. As opposed to, I'm going to go in a ring, I'm going to take 50 bumps, I'm going to break my back, I might break my neck, and, I'm going to come back next week and do the same exact thing. If you're looking at it from a business point of view, you're not going to make your money doing that.
Russo, I'm going to tell you something right now. I just made a decision. Your points are so valid and so right on that I'm going to tell you at the end of this interview when it's over, I'm going to tell you what changed the wrestling business. Only you, never told anybody before. You and your listeners only. I'm going to tell you.
Don't forget that because I'm going to hold you to that.
Oh, please. I've never told anyone this.
Bro,
it's what has changed this business.
Can I ask you a question? Why doesn't somebody like you get in the game more to re-educate these chuckleheads and
In
let
what
them know
capacity, Vince?
this
Who's
is
going to
what
pay
the
me to do
people
that?
want? What's that?
Who? In what capacity? Who's going to pay me to do that?
I'll
See,
pay you, bro. How much? How
I
much is
don't
it
like
going to
to just
cost
talk
me?
about wrestling for free. Of course, I do it for you because you're a friend. It's like 3 hours we're doing this shit, isn't it?
Bro, well, bro, I got to be honest with you. I was talking to somebody today, and I'm not going to mention any names, but we kind of mentioned them a few minutes ago, but I'm not going to mention them again.
All right.
And he said to me, he goes, bro, they don't want people with good ideas in the wrestling business and that know psychology and know how to make money and know how to work a match and build a character. They want robots. And
Is that it?
that's what I'm saying, bro. A
But
lot
don't
of
they
the
want to be
same.
as successful as they can?
All right, Chris, before we pick it up again, we left off that the end game should be money. And what does it take for a wrestler to make money in the wrestling business? That's where we were. Before I get to that, though, I want to bring up something very important I found in my notes while you took a little break. And I just have to say this for the record, okay? Bro, I think Jimmy Hart got ripped off when he traded you for Adrian Adonis and the missing link. What are your thoughts on that, bro?
I was delighted. Was my thoughts. Jimmy wasn't the kind of, and I like Jimmy personally. He wasn't the kind of manager for me. I was much happier with Bobby. So,
Bro, elaborate on that a little bit because I asked you that question as a joke, but that's very interesting to me. He wasn't the kind of a manager for you in what sense? What was the difference?
oh, that was a joke. I didn't even get it.
Yeah, that was a joke.
I just mean all the razzmatazz, all the constant. I didn't think that went well with my gimmick. I thought Bobby's, his way was much better. Plus, he'd always say any final instructions. He'd say, give up during instructions. I always got a kick out of that.
Bro, you reminded me a little bit of Steve McQueen with the glasses, bro.
Do I have my glasses on?
Yeah.
I look more youthful. I meant to take them off. Where's the screen? You think I look like McQueen?
A little bit, bro. Yeah, you really do, man. Yeah, look at you.
Honestly,
What was that? Bullet
I'm
in
getting
Bullet,
good
bro, a
at
little
this
bit.
next time. I honestly thought more of a young Newman. But if you say McQueen's even cooler than Newman. I'm leaving him on.
Hey, bro, you know what I wanted to ask you too? We're going to backtrack a little bit because I wanted to ask you this. Bro, I read when I was, doing my research for you, I read that, you had lost your hair in a match, I mean? Yeah, so I guess your hair was up or something in a match. Right. What was that designed for you to be bald from that point on, or did you just like the way you looked without the hair?
It was never really. I don't recall, Vince. I don't think it was a plan. Well, let me think. I had the long hair when I started in the WWF. I thought every heel had long hair. Larry Sharp told me from the get-go. He said, "You might as well shave your head, because you'll be doing it anyway." But I do remember the hair match with Kevin Von Erich. The Von Erichs, they just didn't get it. I mean, Fritz says to me, now I'm going out in a hair match, right? So it was a big thing. I had, not because I was being Big Daddy Bundy, so it wasn't like long anymore. It was cropped short, But Fritz says to me, now I'm losing my hair, so I'm losing everything, the humiliation that, and he says to me, Chris, you got to really sell for Kev tonight. And I'm thinking, Vince, I'm thinking, Fritz, I'm losing my hair to your midget kid. He should be selling 99% of the match. I should slip on a banana peel. He beats me and takes my hair. But the way it was with the Von Erichs, they'd want to beat you up for 10, 12 minutes, then beat you. It was unbelievable. Oh, the things I saw there. Oh, my God. I actually saw Kevin a few years ago. There was a Devastation Incorporated reunion in Dallas. So, he comes in and we say hello and, shook and hug, whatever. And we're sitting there a few minutes, and he says, Chris, I think you're more excited to see me. I'm more excited to see you than you are to see me. And I'm thinking, well, Kev, I was a bigger star in the business, so maybe you should be more excited. I didn't say that because I didn't want to hurt his feelings, so that I like Kevin. But, I mean, how excited am I supposed to be to see a guy who was on top in his daddy's territory and nowhere else?
Yeah.
When I did that shot, when I went from Knoxville to do that shot in Atlanta on the TBS, the national TV, to work with Brody in the Army that night, Kevin was there, and he was like third or fourth match. I had never met him, and all he did was going around after his match was go around to every person you find. Did you see my match? Did you see my match? What did you think? I mean, he was used to being in Dallas where, you know, he was always the main event or semi-main at worst. And everybody tell him, oh, Kev, you were great. You were great. So I always just thought, man, get a clue. But I liked them. I liked the Von Erichs.
Hey, bro, when you went up, when you finally got the big break and you went up to New York, was there anybody there, you know, that mentored you a little bit, that took you under their arm? I mean, was there anybody with that type of an influence, you know, coming from, you know, Texas? Now you're going to the big show. It's a whole different world. You know, you're still, bro, really relatively young. Was there anybody there at the time that really, you know, taught you the ropes on the big stage, so to speak?
Well, see, I thought I was on the big stage, to tell you the truth, because I mean, I went to Dallas, but then I worked a year in Louisiana. And Louisiana, you worked 7-8 times a week. I mean, you worked. And then I was in Atlanta for a year, and then I actually went to Lawler and worked for Lawler for almost a year. So I thought by the time I got there, but if anybody I would say it kind of like took me under his wing, it was Big John Studd. When I got my break to go to Dallas, John Studd actually said to me, do you have enough money? Do you need any money? He was going to lend me some money, which luckily I didn't, but I thought not many guys would do that for you. And that's who I travel with all the time. So I would definitely have to say John Studd.
Wow, bro, that's really interesting to me, bro, because, you know, later on, I mean, bro, I dealt with so much paranoia, you know, with the boys, with each other and jockeying for position. Man, a guy like Big John Studd, you would think that somebody like you would be a threat to him, but I guess it was just a different landscape.
He knew it was totally. He knew there was enough for everybody. We were running 3 shows a night. No, there was never nothing like that in the 80s. But when I come back in the 90s, there sure was. What a bunch of assholes. And you know, like I said, I wouldn't have minded anything if I was working in the first match and making a decent living. But when you're not getting a chance to do anything, you're at TV and you're doing no promos, and Barry Horowitz is doing promos, and the idiot in charge of the magazine is putting you on the cover as Santa Claus, and you're a heel. You know, and then the same guy puts a 7-page article on the 1-2-3 Kid. You got to wonder, I mean, are the inmates running the asylum?
But, bro, I got to ask you that question because that's a very interesting point. Listen, you were only away for 6 years, okay? When you came back, bro, you know, Pat Patterson and Bruce Pritchard, you know, they were writing the television show with Vince. Now, you had worked with Pat and Bruce before. You know, you were successful with them before. You were successful with Vince before. Why do you think they would bring you back 6 years later and not do anything with you?
Well, that's just I don't know. I think whatever. I mean, when I come back, I think Jeff Jarrett was the top heel. He'd never been on top anywhere but his daddy's territory, right? Yeah. I don't know why. That's a good question. I remember I asked Vince. I was about 8 months in. I said, Vince, you told me you was going to get a super push. I mean, I said, what happened? He said, it just never happened. And I said, well, damn, Vince, you're the one that has to make it happen. And he basically told me that, yeah, he had nothing for me. And I was there, you know, a few more months.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just
how do you have a guy come back who was the best heel in the business, the top heel in the business for what, 3 years, 84, 85, 86, and all of a sudden, you know, I don't know, I'm not a good wrestler anymore. It's one of life's great mysteries.
Well, unless, bro, somebody got in his ear, or I mean, you know how that stuff can get sometimes. Who knows?
One person
you know?
doesn't like you. That's all it needs. And I was never a guy. I was never in there jockeying. Like I said, I was never calling Vince. I thought I was doing Vince a favor by not calling him, because I know if I was him, I wouldn't want the wrestlers calling me. But like I said, when I called him in his house 3 times, he picked up the phone every time. So apparently he liked people talking to him.
Bro, if you had to do that all over again, would you do it differently?
Well, I would try and go to WCW. But when the place where you've had success and you've been, you know, treated, you thought okay, when they call and they say you're going to give you a super push, you kind of think, everybody's more comfortable with the familiar. I would rather go back there, and that's what I did. But looking back, I made a big mistake. But hey, I made bigger mistakes than that, Vince.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Chris, why do you think today, bro, here's the thing that amazes me. To me, bro, it's real simple, okay? You're over in professional wrestling when you walk through an airport and everybody knows who you are. That's when you're over. And we can go up and down the list of people that couldn't go in airports. That's when you're over. Somehow or another, that mentality changed to 200 people in an arena chanting, "That was awesome," because you just did a triple kunrata from the top rope and landed on your head, and all of a sudden 200 people are chanting, "That was awesome," and now you think you're over. And now you think you know everything. And now you think you know more than the next guy. And now you actually think you're a main eventer. Again, bro, it boggles my mind, the evolution of the business, because I don't know how it got to that. Again, I know the internet played a huge part. There's no question about that. So, somewhere along the line, the tail started wagging the dog. That's what's happening now.
The inmates are running the asylum.
The inmates are running the asylum. But now I'm curious. Tell me what you were going to tell me. What was that point in time where everything went sour?
I said I was going to tell you that.
You're not ready yet, bro?
Oh, that's we close on that, Vince.
Okay, all right.
You're not ready to close, are you?
No, I'm not ready to close.
You promised me 4 hours, Vince.
Well, I want to make sure you're okay, bro. I mean,
you're not going to cut me short. That ain't going to happen.
Bro, the only thing was, bro, I got to tell you this, bro. There was a couple of seconds ago, bro, I don't think you noticed or not, there was a cat walking around behind your head, and it was kind of killing the whole Bundy thing for me. I was waiting for you to turn around and eat the cat, bro.
I'll shoot that cat. Who was it? Where's she at? Come here, Stu. Come here, Stu. Stu's not paying attention to me.
Yeah. But, again, bro, when we talk about that and we talk about characters making money, Hulk Hogan wasn't a great worker. Steve Austin, bro. Steve Austin would be the first guy to tell you he wasn't a great worker. The larger-than-life characters made all the money, and they had the longest careers. But, again, that's just another lost art today, bro. All these guys, look the same, don't have a character, don't have a gimmick, and nobody gets over.
It's, like I said, I always say the guys all look alike to me. I very rarely watch. I mean, I'll tune in for 5 minutes, but usually you don't see any wrestling in that time. It's just talking. But you're talking about the young guys. I watched a match the other night. It was one of the most horrifying things that I've ever seen. This little skinny kid, about 150 pounds, not an ounce of muscle on him. And then he came out, and he was, of course, a heel. What else would he be? 150-pound heel. And he works the people for 5 minutes. Now, his opponent, the babyface, is this fat kid, which I got no problem with being fat, but, know you're fat. He comes out with a feather boa and just a regular pair of trunks and doing this most disturbing dance where he's sashaying around. And he moves up and he moves back, and then just horrible. They pranced around the ring for 5 minutes before they ever touched, and then they just had the most horrible match you can imagine. And I'm just thinking to myself, and it turned out actually the guy was renting some equipment at the promoter, and one of his conditions was he had to be on the show. Can you imagine that? There's a guy who doesn't understand it's about money, this business.
Bro, when you're in a situation like that, okay, bro, do you want to just grab a guy and smack him upside the head and just say, like, what the frig are you doing? Or, bro, are you just so disgusted at this point, knowing what it was, knowing what it can be again, and knowing what it is, that it's almost like, you've waved the white flag. I guess my question is, bro, what's going to change it? What has to happen? If all of a sudden, let me ask you a question, Chris. If all of a sudden Vince McMahon calls you tomorrow and say, Chris, King Kong Bundy was one of the top 3 greatest heels in the history of the WWE. I want you to come in, I want you to come back to the WWE. I want you to work behind the scenes and teach these kids what professional wrestling used to be and what it needs to be again. Where would you start? What is the most important thing to you where you'd
Boy,
start from scratch and say, here's the starting point?
Boy, that's a tough question. But what would I do? The first thing I'd do. First thing, I'd weed out the guys that don't look like wrestlers, either because of their costume, because of their build, guys that just don't look like they should be professional wrestlers. And I would take away the fireworks and the music and all the pyrotechnics for every match. I would have the first match come out and they would keep it in the ring. You know what I mean? They wouldn't go off the top rope 7 times. First match, that I'm watching, in the first match there was 2 ball shots. I would cut out the ball shots. I mean, it's just a lot of things I do. And I tell the guys, know your role. Who's to say that, The Rock? Know your role. If your role is to go out there in the second match, it's not to wow the people with your, aerial moves. It's to go out there, have a good, solid wrestling match, give the people what they want to see, the heel doing a job for the babyface, and move it on to the next match, which should be a little more, give it a little wider latitude in what they can do. Maybe they can go outside the ring. But you got every guy in every match trying to steal a show. Somebody's got to realize they're not the main event sometimes. And your job is different than the guys in the main event. But I don't know. That's just a rambling way of...
No. Hey, Chris, what was the funny thing? They just had a pay-per-view on Sunday, Table, Ladders, and Chairs. The opening match, so every match is a gimmick match. That in itself could be a little bit flawed. But the opening match was a ladder match, right, bro? Bro, nobody after the first match could follow up that match. Everything after the first match was a letdown because in the first match, they raised the bar so high, there was no place to go. Everything that followed was a letdown. That would have never happened back in your era, would it have?
The first match. Why would you do that? Where do you go? It's like guys that wanted to start a match by jumping the other guy and beating the hell out of him. Well, that's okay, but where do you go from there?
Well, bro, not only that, back in the old school, if those guys would have did that back in 1983 in the first match, and they would have come to the back, what would have happened to those two guys?
Oh, they would have heard a lot of shit. Like, what the hell do you think you are? Are you Hulk Hogan? Are you the main event? So, I mean, guys nowadays don't know their roles. All they care about is getting their shit in and going over. Not about getting the match over. Not about making the other guy look good, thereby making themselves look good, too. I mean, if you go out there and beat some piece of shit, what does that say about you? You know what I mean? You always want to make your opponent look good, but not these guys, not the new breed.
Hey, Chris, what is there an agent you worked with more, back in the day? Because again, you were a special attraction, you were unique. What was there an agent that was assigned to you more than anybody else?
No, nobody had a special deal like that. I love Harley Race had the best line. He said they used to call them stooges, now they call them agents. That's a sorry group of individuals there.
That's interesting. I never heard that before.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a classic line. Because that's basically, they're stooges, they're babysitters. And some of them were cool about it, and other ones were, they're looking for who's coming in late at night, and they're worried about you being 15 minutes late to the show. I mean, I never thought, if I'm on last, why should I have to be there an hour before the show? Really? Yeah. Couldn't the guys could say you get there a half hour before the show? What's the difference? And then when they started a dress code, if they had started a dress code back in the 80s, guys, now they have to wear suit and ties on planes, don't they?
They did for a while. I don't know if they have to anymore. I'm sure they do.
Thing I've ever heard of. At one time Alonzo said, "I'm going to tell on you. You were wearing shorts on the plane." If it's summertime, I'm 450 pounds. Why shouldn't I wear shorts on the plane?
Yeah.
But he was a total jag-off, Lonzo.
Did the agents back then have a lot of say-so in the match, or was it just you and the guy you were working with?
No, they didn't. They gave us the finish, and that was it. say
See,
so.
but
No.
you knew what you were doing. That's the problem today, bro. I was privy. My last years at TNA, I was privy, bro, to 25-year-old guys laying out their own matches, and the agents standing there and listening to what they're laying out. But, these guys didn't have the psychology or the experience to know what they were doing. So it turned into nothing more than a spot fest. But, the agent never got themselves involved in the match, and they needed to, because the young kids didn't know what they were doing. But I mean, bro, in your day, it was simple, man. You guys
We never
were
got any.
educated. You
We
knew
never
what you were
got.
doing.
We never got any input from the agents. They just tell you, who was going over, and you knew when you went to the building, depending on who you're working with, you knew whether you were going over or not. It wasn't any big mystery.
Was anybody, bro, like who? Let me ask you two questions here. Who was the easiest guy for you to work with? Who was the most difficult guy for you to work with?
Oh, that's easy. The easiest and best guy was Hulk Hogan. He was great to work with. And the worst guy was Andre the Giant.
Well, let me ask you. Let me stop right there, bro. When you say Hogan and he was great to work with, break that down for me. Like, what made him great to work with?
Because he was always, he'd offer, do you want me to get a little color? You know what I mean? And I never said yes because I didn't think it was necessary. But he just knew that you had to look good for him to look good, and he made you look good. We did a thing one time where and he suggested I was standing by him. I just leveled him with something, and I'm standing by him, and I go 1, 2, 3, but like my foot was touching his shoulder, and so it was like this controversy. I said, I was touching him. His shoulders were down. I'm the world champion, and we worked that around a little bit. That was his idea, I mean, you work with an idiot like Bret Hart, and all he cares about is getting his little false finishes in, making his little comeback, and you doing the job, making sure you got every little thing. And Hulk wasn't like that. First of all, he didn't do as much as Bret. He didn't do drop downs. Why would you ever do a drop down? You're in a fight. Why would you drop down? Why would there be a leapfrog? It's like, what's the rationale for the leapfrog? The other guy, he's bending over, trying to gore you like a bull, and so you leapfrog him. It just doesn't make any sense. But that was the stuff that Bret Hart did that he thought made him such a great worker.
Well, I'm really glad, that you talk about Hulk on here and how he was working back then and putting him over, because, bro, I mean, in the later years, again, when I just talk about paranoia, setting in, I mean, that's when I first went to WCW, that was the first side of Hulk Hogan that I personally saw. Here I was coming in, bro. This is Hulk Hogan. I don't know what's going through his mind about, Vince Russo, this new booker, this new writer. What is he going to bury me? Is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? Bro, this is Hulk Hogan. This is a guy that I'm in the business because of him. I'm looking at him like, an absolute icon. And I could tell by the first time he looked at me, bro, he didn't trust me. I was out to get him. I was out to bury him, whatever it was. So, I mean, that's why it's fascinating to me to hear the stories of him back in that day when I worked with a guy that was just much, much different, almost 20 years later, bro,
Well, I talked several weeks ago to somebody. I'm not going to say who he is because he might not want me to. A guy that I trust more than anybody in the wrestling business. I believe what this man says. And he told me that Hulk has changed. He said he's not the same guy, Chris. He's just not. And he went on to mention a few things. I can't even recall what they were. But, all I can go is how the guy treated me. And when I left, he said, listen, call me before you come back or else they'll just beat you. I don't know what that meant, but he gave me his mom's number, his number, like a couple of his numbers, one in Connecticut, one in Los Angeles. I mean, he was always good to me. So and he got me my job there. So all I have is good things to say about Hulk Hogan. I'm not some ingrate like that piece of shit, the honky tonk man, who Hulk Hogan saved his life. We were working in Calgary, me and Hulk on top, and Wayne Ferris, honky tonk, was working the territory, and he looked like same gimmick, honky tonk man. He looked like Vince, a homeless Elvis. His jumpsuit was in tatters, like along the cuffs, like totally tattered. It was in rags. He was starving, and he was as humble as a church mouse. Wouldn't say a word. And Hulk actually said to me, he said he was wasn't kind of like thinking out loud. He said, "You think I ought to get Vince to bring him in?" And I said, "Yeah, do that, Terry. He's a good guy." And I didn't know what a piece of shit Wayne Ferris was. And I never saw a push. Here's my boy Phil. Hey, Philly. Say hello to everybody on the Swerve. That's Phil. He's a stone player. What was I saying about Wayne Ferris?
Yeah, bro. I just
now that fucking Hogan. He fucked me over. He saved your life, Jagoff. And I don't care what you say. If I see you, I'm probably going to slap you in the mouth, Wayne. I think you should know that.
Bro, I can remember in front of the camera, freaking Hogan put him over like $1 million. Hogan made the guy on TV. I mean, I remember that like it was
maybe
yesterday.
Hogan is an idiot because he's got friends like Beefcake, and I kind of like Brian Knobs, but yeah, so maybe Hulk is. Maybe he has changed. You know, it sounds that way.
You know, here's the funny thing to me. You know, Chris, this is what I noticed with the wrestlers. Okay, there were two types. One was the majority. One was the minority. The majority was, bro, the paranoid guy. They want to take my spot. What's this writer really up to? Why is he trying to bury me? You know, that paranoid wrestler. Then, bro, you had very few that were so confident in their ability that they never played that game. They were so confident that
I never felt like that.
What was that?
I never felt like that, like worried about. I mean, you know, I knew there was enough for all of us.
Yeah, that's what surprises me about Hogan. You know, here's a guy, the biggest star in the business. Why would at any time he ever have to worry about, you know, or have eyes in the back of his head? I mean, who's going to be better than Hulk Hogan?
I mean, how first of all, how are they going to bury you? If you don't like what's on the page, if you're Hulk, you can refuse to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, hey, maybe he's going crazy. You never know.
Has there ever been anybody, bro, like after you that, you know, you've seen perform and, you know, maybe not so much reminded you of yourself because, bro, you were unique. But, I mean, just guys where you looked at them, you know, from gimmick to outfit to character to work, and you basically said, you know, now that guy's got it. That guy gets it. That's a star. What wrestlers over the years would you
From
put
what
in that
I've
category?
seen, I've never seen that much, but I always remember thinking that Mark Henry looks like he knows what he's doing. What did you think of him, Vince?
Well, you know, bro, I'll tell you what. I worked with Mark Henry very, very early on. You know, as a matter of fact,
I don't know him.
Yeah, I had given him that, you know, sexual chocolate moniker.
That was totally disgusting and bad for wrestling.
Bro, it was funny. Tell me why that was bad for wrestling.
It wasn't what wrestling's about, Vince. But hey, that was your bread and butter. I understand, you know, but it's just it's not family oriented. I think wrestling should be family oriented. And didn't they show him in bed with like who was the old woman?
I wasn't there. I didn't do any of that stuff.
I just thinking. Yeah. Then he was banging some chick in a coffin. I was not there for that. Don't pin that on me. I was there, bro, up until, you know, him and D'Lo Brown came together as good friends, and he was sexual chocolate because he thought he was this big sexy guy. He had like a crush on China, you know, but right after that I left. So all that other stuff you're talking about. But bro, do you not think that professional wrestling needs to have a little bit of something for everybody? I just look at it. It went so long. How old is professional wrestling? And it didn't have that element to it. And I just thought, like, whatever they do, if like anything else, they're going to take it. It's going to go over the top. But hey, I'm not saying you're wrong, Vince. I'm just saying it's my opinion.
But do you think it didn't have that element back during your day, bro? Because I would disagree with that. Bro, one of my early influences, I'm not kidding you, one of my early influences was, you know, Fuji Vice, Fuji Bandito. You know, the stuff Don Morocco did with Mr. Fuji, some of the first vignettes ever.
I don't
Was
even know about those.
Oh yeah, no, really, bro? Well, bro,
Really?
what about the honky tonk man? I mean, do you not think that that wasn't a comedic character?
Yeah, sure. I don't. We on two different tracks here, Russo. I don't even know
No,
what you're
no,
talking
I'm
about.
just saying, bro. Like,
Are
you
you
know,
smoking marijuana?
no, I'm
I know
talking.
you. No,
No,
you used to do drugs.
bro,
You
it's
do drugs.
legal here, you
If
know, in
you're
this
doing
state.
drugs now, Vince,
No,
I'm signing off right now. Because if
no,
you're
bro.
high,
But
you live in Colorado.
yeah, I'm
You're
in
high right
Colorado,
now.
bro.
You disrespect me in this interview by coming in high, Vince. I'm
Bro,
shocked at you.
you want to hear something?
Shocked.
I'm gonna tell you a story about that, right? Bro, I've been feeling really stressed out lately, right? So you can get marijuana on every street corner here, bro, and it's legal. It's like going to 7-Eleven, right? So I'm figuring at 53 years old, I need something to calm me down and settle my nerves. So like I'm gonna try this again, bro. Last time I did it, I was probably 23 years old, right? So, bro, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna smoke the pot because I need to de-stress and I need to sleep at night because I don't sleep, right? So, bro, I wind up smoking the pot and I'm so paranoid that something bad is going to happen to me that I couldn't allow myself to relax. And it was such a horrible experience because I thought it was going to affect my brain or make me crazy or something. It was such a horrible experience. I was more stressed out after I did it.
Do you have the? Could you send me the weed you didn't smoke, Vince?
Bro, it's in my drawer right here. I'm
That's,
afraid to do it
I've
again.
had people tell me that. And I never remember in the past telling that marijuana makes them paranoid. I never recall hearing that, but I've had several people tell me that. I mean, not that I smoke that much, but I mean, I've had a lot of people say that where I never remember hearing that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bro, it used to put me to sleep, and that's what I used to like about it. It would just mellow me out, put me to sleep. I'd go to bed. But
That'd be nice.
yeah, as I got older, bro, it used to make me paranoid. I used to freak out of my mind with the
And
stuff.
that's just how your body's changed, I guess. I missed what we were talking about, Vince. I said I wasn't in favor of the sexual component. And you said something about I don't see how that equates with the honky tonk man.
No, but bro, I think you're confusing sexual chocolate was just what he called himself, thinking he was a ladies' man. All
Right.
that stuff you're talking about with the coffin and Mae Young and all that stuff, I wasn't around for that. I just gave him the name because Mark Henry thought he was a ladies' man. But to get back to Mark Henry, yes, he's still there, bro. I mean, the guy's been there for like 15, 20 years. And the last time I saw him, he was still in great shape. He was cutting a great promo. I mean, he's a guy that really, really got better through the years.
Yeah, good for him.
Bro, did you work a lot with Savage?
No, hardly ever.
Well, was he there when you were there?
Yeah, he was there. What a jerk off.
Tell me about that.
What an asshole. He just didn't like me for some reason. Some people hate for no reason. Mm-hmm. That was the kind of thing I had with Savage because I never did anything to him, you know what I mean? But he was a total jerk off. And I'm the type, Vince, if I have a triple coronary after we sign off and you think I was a prick, please tell everybody you thought I was a prick. Because just because somebody dies doesn't change their character. Perfect example, we're sitting in Lawler's building. In the Mid-South Coliseum?
Yeah.
Down in Memphis. And back in the back, huge, cavernous, back room like those buildings have. So they got those big tables like they have in locker rooms that guys get their feet wrapped. So I got my own room. I'm sitting there just laying back, relaxing, waiting for my turn. Savage and his father come in. And they're cutting up and basically just breaking my balls and being dickheads, which is what dickheads do. And as they're leaving, one of them says, referring to me, well, he's not going to live that long because I'm big and fat, Well, the old man's dead. Savage is dead. Wow. So fuck both of you.
Wow.
He's not going to live that long. And I heard Lanny's got some problem with me saying shit about Randy. Lanny, fuck you too. You know what I mean? You're with your brand new teeth. How'd you get those teeth, Lanny? Anyway, that's another story. Yeah, the Savage, why Vince used him so good. Oh, my God. Savage, when he was world champion of their own federation, he was arrested coming out of a supermarket with a steak down his pants. So obviously they'd seen him do it before, and they called the cops because nobody in the store wanted to confront Randy Savage. But he told somebody, Bobby Heenan actually asked him about it when I told Bobby. And he said, yeah, that was an angle we were doing. Yeah, that's some angle where your world champions coming out of the supermarket with a steak down his pants.
Yeah.
To me, Vince, if you're hungry and you steal food, fine. If you got
Right.
money to pay for it and you steal food, you're an asshole. And that's what
Right.
Savage was. Are we clear on how I feel about Randy Savage?
We're clear, but I want to ask you this, bro, because I've said this a lot. And it seems like, bro, I'm telling you, 95% of the people that come on this show fall under this category, right? And, bro, I've said this a lot of times. Bro, my opinion, I was in the wrestling business for 23 years, and this is what I took away from it. And I want to get your feedback on this. Bro, I've always said this. It's hard to be a nice guy and exist in the wrestling business. And like it's almost mandatory to have a little bit of an a-hole in you in order to be successful in the wrestling business. And I say that, bro, because it seems like everybody that's on the outside looking in, have tremendous hearts, did the right thing, were good human beings and good people, but yet for whatever reason, they're on the outside looking in.
Oh, well, there's no doubt in my mind. Sorry to interrupt you, Vince, but the people that work that he's surrounded himself with are assholes. I mean, the bigger an asshole you are, I've said that for years, the more Vince McMahon likes you. I don't know how it is. I guess they have a pheromones they put out and they sense each other. But the bigger asshole you are, the more the WWE loves you. And I know that for a fact. I've heard stories, I've never seen it, but from people that I believe they, were pretty high up there, where guys would call on the phone and Vince would be in his office, Vince would put him on the speaker, and a guy's life's in shambles. And he's just looking for any kind of crumb Vince will throw him. And they're basically sitting back there laughing at the guy. I've heard that from a couple people. I could see it happening.
Well, bro, I used to see that a lot, and bro, it's what got me a lot of heat with some of the boys. And bro, what would happen would be I'd be in these creative meetings with Vince, right? Vince didn't like somebody for whatever reason, bro. And you knew you can't bring up the guy's name. He's not going anywhere. He's never going to get a shot. And like it was just over. I mean, you knew it, right, because you knew how Vince reacted to certain people.
Right.
So, bro,
yeah.
I was the guy that, I understood and I respected the fact this is the guy's livelihood. This is how he makes a living. So, of course, bro, these guys would be scared to death to go to Vince. So they'd basically come to me and say, Vince, what's the problem? What's the issue? So, bro, knowing this was their livelihood, I couldn't sit there and lie to the guy. I would basically say, well, to be honest with you, Vince has an issue with you because of A, B, C, and D. I would try to do this to try to overcome it, whatever, give that guy advice because I knew he was in the freaking doghouse, right? And then, bro, guess what? Because I did that, now their heat went to me for shooting straight with them and telling them the truth.
Yeah, yeah. If you could think, Vince, I'm curious, what were some of the issues like that Vince had with a particular guy?
Oh, bro, just... Bro, here's the thing that, like, I never understood about Vince, okay? Some guys, bro, he would just see nothing in, okay, bro?
Okay.
And, bro, I'll be honest with you. You brought him up before. Bro, one of those guys was Jeff Jarrett, okay?
There's nothing there.
Yeah, and Vince would, like, just see... But, like, bro, this is what boggled my mind. If you don't see anything in the guy, then why is he there?
Because when I came back,
what's going to happen is you're
Jarrett
going to...
was the top heel when I came back.
Bro, Jeff was the top heel. Jeff was the top heel because of me. He was the top heel because I had an association with him, and I used to pitch stuff for him. Vince didn't think he had any talent, but my whole thing was, okay, bro, that's fine and well, but why is he here? Because then what happens is they wind up... hawking me all night. Do something with me. Do something with me. Do something with me. I can't do something with you because I know Vince doesn't like you, but I don't know why Vince has him there in the first place.
Well, I wouldn't say Jeff does have talent. Jeff's a good wrestler, but Jeff just has no physical presence, in my opinion.
And he is part of. Yeah, he was a very talented guy. I would never take that away from him. You talk about great wrestlers and psychology. I saw hundreds of Jeff's matches. He had that, no question about it. Here's where I think Vince had the issue. And Chris, I got to tell you something. I get a lot of heat with this over the years, but I got to be honest, and I have to stick to my guns. I want to see your opinion on this, right? Bro, I found this out in the wrestling business, okay? Bro, when you're regional and especially Southern, okay, and you have a heavy Southern accent, okay, with my experience, bro, it was always very difficult to get somebody with a deep Southern accent over on the national scene because, bro, people in New York, people in Chicago, people in LA on the West Coast, when they hear somebody with a heavy accent, right away in their minds, there's a stereotype of what that person is. And that's why I thought it was very, very difficult to get those people over on a large scale. Bro, Madison Square Garden, WWF, almost impossible. I've taken so much heat over that over the years. And just being honest, bro, I really can't name one guy who had a thick, heavy Southern accent and was over nationally. People say Dusty. Dusty didn't have a Southern accent. Dusty had a Dusty accent.
You're right. It wasn't a Southern accent.
Would you agree with that, bro?
I just thought Jeff didn't have the physical. He was short, number one. And plus, he wore that hair of his looked so bad. That long blonde hair. And he wore the one gimmick with the straps down the back. It was just the creepiest looking outfit. Yeah, I just thought Jeff.
But
plus, he was Terry Jarrett's kid, so.
But he was a good heel, bro. I think Jeff Jarrett knew how to play a heel well.
Just didn't have it, Vince. You can say all you want. He's a good little worker, but he just didn't have the
good little hand, bro.
Good little hand.
Give me it, bro. Give me the words of wisdom.
Get ready. You got a pen. I'm going to tell you what changed. Now, this is it. Now, you want to be able to grasp the poignance of this remark. I don't really think you will, but write it down.
I'm all ears, bro.
Old saying in wrestling. To be the man, you have to beat the man. Not beat him in a fight, but you had to out-charisma him. You had to put more asses in seats. That's what you had to do. To be the man, you had to beat the man. Did you write it down, Vinny?
Yeah, I did. I got that. That, bro.
You got it?
So there really is a lot more levity to that than just taking it on the surface.
Did I say I was finished, Russo?
Oh,
See, that's why I can't totally connect with you, Vince. What changed the wrestling business? To be the man, you have to beat the man. You remove one letter from that sentence, and that will explain to you what changed the wrestling business.
Oh, man, bro. You're going to make me do a jumble now?
With that, I'm going to say goodnight.
Are you not going to tell me what... Hold on, bro. I got to write this down now. To beat the man. To be the man. You got to beat the man.
To be the man, you have to beat the man. Remove one letter.
Change one letter or one word?
To be the man, you have to beat the man.
Yeah.
Remove one letter. I'll be going now. I'll be going, Russo. I'll be going.
Bro, you're gonna leave me at the. You're gonna leave me with that, bro.
I'll be going. Take care, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Hey, Chris, can I ask you one more thing before you go? And I got it. Can I ask you one more thing before you go?
Sure.
Are you there?
Yes.
Chris, listen to me, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, right? This pyro and ballyhoo, bro, this thing is blowing up. I'm making this bigger than the both of us. I want to be the Jim Rome of professional wrestling. The guy that can speak the truth and be a wrestling fan and tell you what he really thinks. That's who I want to be. I believe in honesty, bro. would you be open to coming on more often? I think you have so much to lend, bro, and you have such a vast knowledge. And
I'd definitely like to talk to you about that, Vince. Yeah.
okay, so you're open to being a friend of this show where you can
Well,
come
we
on
have discussed a mutual friendship, what would be in it for both of us, how it would work. But it's something I would definitely be interested in because I like the way you look at the business, and I think you have a grasp of the business that many people don't have. Tell me what changed the business. Vince, are you there?
Yeah. B. You said B. To be the man, you have to beat the man. To beat, bro, I don't know. Can you break that down? Bro, I'm Italian.
You take one B out of that statement, and that tells you what happened. How many B's are there in the statement? My God.
To the man, you have to beat the man.
To be the man, you have to beat the man.
Right? You said take out one B.
Right. Jesus. Thank you. Good night.
Wait, don't go yet. Hold on, bro. I need this broken down for me. Hold on. I want to use this. Explain it to me now. Go ahead. One of yous. Hello? Hello, pilot to tower. Chris.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a pole again. Put it on a pole again. Put it on the pole again. And our square to quad is gonna get emotional as I wait to over.